I'm a bit of a mess. I mean, it's no real surprise if you've been watching this series. It's a total wreck. You could say it's not even really a series. It's just a bunch of videos in the same world of me just doing what interests me at that particular moment. And I kind of love it. But also, sometimes I really hate it. Like when I built a trading hall, I told myself I didn't need a slime farm, and then ended up going back and forth to the swamp 800 blocks away 5 times to get enough slime, and then built a slime farm anyways. So you see what I mean. But that said, honestly, for me, even if I wanted to, I don't think I could do this series in any other way. Simply put, it's a mess because I'm a mess, which is okay for me. It's even fun. But the problem is that you, the viewer, misses out on a lot of things I have done behind the scenes. So this video is my attempt to bring a little bit of order and recap what has happened behind the scenes while I have been raving in a 2-episode fever dream about how much I hate villagers. Then we can check out some of the farms, etc. that haven't been shown yet, and just kind of get the series updated to what the world actually looks like right now. I also want to go end rating, which should be a total disaster because, well, I'm a massive noob. And finally, I have an interesting upgrade to the Pillager grinder that I want to implement. It's quite simple and should supercharge the Pillager grinder. And I'm curious to see if it's effective enough to be a good XP source that will make heading to an Enderman farm unnecessary. But we will find that out in this video. So let's start with a quick recap. Episode 1, we did, well, next to nothing. I just talked a lot. Really surprising, right? We found a cave, made a simple base, and built a simple iron farm. Episode 2 was mostly in creative, but we designed the villager trading hall and built the first draft of the pillager grinder in the survival world. Episode 3, we built and explained the trading hall and designed an overworld void trading setup. And that's it so far. But there are some things you might have noticed, like where did my iron farm go? Or what is this thing? So let's get into it. At this point, the world has revolved around the villager trading hall. After designing the base system, I had this genius idea to dig out a hole by hand and stream it. I grinded for a beacon and cheesed the wither while still managing to die somehow. But anyways, I got the beacon, so I got digging. The streams were fun, but looking at this hole, I guess you can see the issue. I'm kind of dumb. Digging it out would have taken forever. So I gave up and decided to use TNT. Honestly, this was a good thing because I am planning on having a lot of my base underground, so this helps save a lot of time in the long run. I went with a simple flying machine TNT duper and relocated it when the TNT stopped reaching. But wait, wasn't my base here? And again, what the hell is that? Well, that lovely base and iron farm I made in the first video, those were in the way, so they were removed. The new quote-unquote base is here for the time being. But this, well, in the first video, we talked about how OP villager mechanics are, and I decided to never mine diamonds in this series. And that lasted for very long. Okay, I made a simple mistake, then another, and a few more. Did I mention I'm a bit of a mess? These were honestly simple accidents, so I've stored them separately as I need to dispose of them, preferably in some sort of fun way. If you have any suggestions on how I can destroy or make these diamonds inaccessible for use, please comment below. I'm going to try to come up with something creative and a little fun to get rid of them. Anyways, I did manage to find a bunch of diamonds that I do want to keep, but not mine. So my solution was to piston them into place and send them up to sky storage with a flying machine for the time being. I know I could have just silk touched them, but I thought having some challenge behind it would be a lot of fun. Eventually, I was thinking they could be some sort of decoration, and I could set up a receiving system that would automatically shift them into place. Maybe a floor or something with the unmined diamonds. But that's an experiment for another video. For now though, let's take a look at what is in the world that you haven't seen before. My plan was just to build a simple witch farm and use the iron saved up from my iron farm to build the trading hall. But well, that turned out to be really dumb. As mentioned, I totally underestimated how many resources I would need. You heard about the slime farm, but that's just a tip of the iceberg. From the outset, I planned on making a witch farm because I always struggle with Redstone early game, and well, no surprise to anyone, I hate trading with villagers for Redstone. In order to make the simple witch farm, I needed string, and just ended up making a very simple string farm to save some time. This and the witch farm were perhaps the only farms that were very straightforward. Most of the rest were just kind of a mess. I also used this space as a manual mushroom farm, which was enough for the swamp-based slime farm that I was planning. So here's my starter witch farm and my slime farm. Both were really simple and easy to make. They are not high efficiency or anything like that, but I mean, it's pretty good. This is a mushroom-based swamp farm, which have become decently popular lately. MD has a nice video on the history of these farms. If you want to check it out, I will link it in the description. Originally, I was going to have one spawning chunk with rails and a circle all around for a total of 8 golems. But it was a bit of a mess and the minecarts glitched out, etc. So I just made it 2 lanes of minecarts. It's also losing a lot of efficiency, but I'm lazy, so I don't really mind since I have way more slime than I need anyways. The witch farm is a little bit slower though, but fortunately, while I don't have much time to actually play Minecraft, I can just set up my PC to AFK and hop on for a couple of minutes every couple of hours or so to empty the chests. So I was able to get loads of redstone for the trading hall. I also made this very sloppy kelp farm just because, I mean, if I'm gonna AFK here, I might as well. At that actually, I also made a stone/cobble farm up at the AFK spot. So none of these are like great, but it's actually doing quite a lot while I AFK here. The slime and witch farms I will probably beef up later in the series as I get the interest to dig into them. But for the time being, these are good enough. You can also see the wheat farms in the background. I refused to enslave farmer and actually struggled really bad with the food issue. But now, I mean, it's okay. So these farms got me most of the way to the trading hall, but I made one key mistake. When I looked at the powered rails, I thought that with some manual gold farming from the nether, I would be okay since the recipe makes 6 rails. The problem is that that is not the recipe. This is. It's 1 rail, each gold ingot. This was a huge problem. So I did what any rational person would and look at an established gold farm design and built that as quickly as I could. Or that's what I should have done. Instead, well, have you ever hit a pigman and gotten like swarmed? It can be crazy, like tons of them coming at you. I know because I did it recently. So I just thought like, you know, just smack one of these guys and trap them and voila, raining gold. Well, it was a disaster. First, because of death. And second, because, well, that gold storm was a trickle. It just didn't work. I mean, I'm not an expert on spawning mechanics, but I should have seen this coming because I know enough to know it doesn't work that way. Anyways, I saw the error of my ways and repented in the temple of Ian X04 with a simple gold farm. So after this, I was set and proceeded to build the villager exploitation machine. And that's of course done, so now we are all caught up to the present time. Except that in the meantime, I have actually already gone end raiding. So let's just jump right into that. Okay, so I might have clipped that to make it look a little smoother than it was. Really, it was a total mess. And honestly, just kind of embarrassing because it shows how bad I am at this game. But if you do want to see the whole end raid, the stream VOD is already posted. So check that out. It was a total disaster, but a lot of fun chilling and chatting with people while playing. And hey, now I have an elytra and can soon grab some live shulkers. But moving on, there was that one last little experiment that I wanted to do in this video. And that is to beef up the pillager farm, and in particular, to see if we can make it a viable XP farm. In episode 2, we made the base system, which is okay for an early game farm, but in general is pretty slow. There were a lot of comments about the pillager farm, and some really cool optimizations. First was a comment from Blackrobe, which suggested that I use trapdoors to make the bubble column see-through to solve my idle pillager problem from the first draft. This is a great suggestion, and he further recommended to actually move the bubble column in line with where the pillagers will pathfind to further simplify and minimize time to kill, thus clearing the mob cap faster. I tested these in creative, and they work perfect, and I am 100% planning on using them. But is there anything else we can do? Well, there was a lead of something to look into, and that lead came from IanXO4, who, knows a thing or two about Minecraft. So I thought it would be interesting to check it out. If you watch the extras portion of his Lazy Mobcap video, he explains how a raid paired with an outpost will eliminate the mob cap in a pillager farm. It's a quite simple mechanic actually. All illagers, yes, illagers, which are pillagers, vindicators, and evokers, i.e. most of the raid mobs. Anyways, all illagers, when within 96 blocks of a raid center, will join the raid. This is very useful since those mobs then will not count towards the mob cap after joining the raid. Since the AFK platform is at an elevation that only allows spawning in the pillager grinder itself, that means the mob cap will be 0 all the time. This will result in the pillager grinder not being limited by the mob cap at all. This is a really interesting concept, but how much of a boost will it actually give us in our mob farm? Well, the only way to find out is to throw a villager in and to have a constant raid and see what happens. This would be a good time to make a guess at what you think will happen if you are interested. So the raid is started, so the mob cap is 0. And I would like to say something is happening, but honestly, it's the same as before. So what's going on here? Why isn't it improving the spawns? Well, there are certainly benefits to the raid. Increasing the spawn rate is not one of them. I'm not an expert on this topic, but what is happening makes total sense. One common misconception is that the mob cap actually influences the rate of spawning. This is not correct. The mob cap is exactly what it sounds like, a cap, meaning at over 70 hostile mobs, it will stop naturally spawning more. It doesn't try to spawn more to fill the cap, it just limits the spawning once the cap is full. So here is a copy of the world before the raid modification. And using carpet mod, we can see the mob cap in the scoreboard. It's clear that with this farm, we don't get anywhere near the mob cap due to spawning limitations. Even so, the mob cap is very important for mob spawning, but in high efficiency farms. So like this Ender farm, which is on the Discord community SMP, and is originally designed by iJevin. This particular farm is honestly a little bit weird for an Enderman farm, since it is built about 45 blocks higher than it has to be, but that was clearly an oversight. Anyways, at this elevation, we see that the mob spawning is much faster. But even so, it is still not reaching the mob cap if it is consistently cleared. But if we use this farm as a comparison to understand our pillager grinder problems, the big question is, why is the Enderman farm spawning so much faster? Well, elevation is going to be the biggest factor. Here at our less than optimal Enderman farm, we have a spawning platform at elevation 88. At the pillager farm on my single player world, the elevation is 109, which is quite high. The problem is that the pillager farm's elevation is linked to the outpost structure. It is only able to be 27 blocks below the top floor of the outpost, so the elevation is limited. But 88 does seem doable for an outpost, right? So wouldn't a pillager farm at elevation 88 with the same amount of spawning spaces be about as fast as an Enderman farm? And maybe even faster with an ongoing raid? Well, luckily one of my pillager farm testing world platforms is at 89, so it's quite comparable. While testing this out, we see that the farm is faster than the one in my single player, but it is clearly not even close to the Enderman farm. But this doesn't make sense, right? We're pretty much at the same elevation and even have more spawning places. Shouldn't it be about the same performance? Well, unfortunately, no. The difference is due to the difference between dimensions, among other factors. The overworld low elevation build limit is y -64. In the end, it's y0. Why this matters is because the mob spawning algorithm picks a random x and z coordinate in a chunk. Then to calculate the elevation, it uses the topmost block in that column and picks a random elevation within those limits. So if we have 10 blocks between the bottom build limit and the topmost block, then the chances of the game picking our spawn platform elevation is about 1 in 10. If there's 100 blocks, then the probability is about 1 in 100. This is simplifying out a bit, and the calculation is actually a little bit different, but the principle is the same. So when looking at elevation, it is the difference between the bottom build limit and the topmost block that matters, not the actual elevation itself. The Pillager farm would need to be at y24 to have the same spawning rates as the Enderman farm at y88, which is just not going to happen due to outpost generation limitations. That said, here is a model with Blackrobe's design concepts and a spawning platform at y68, which is totally reasonable. And this, well, not as fast as an Enderman farm, is a pretty good XP farm. It won't replace the Enderman farm for general bulk XP, but if it's close to your base and you want a raid farm anyways, I mean, it's quite good. The raid mechanic isn't going to really be utilized if you are doing general auto-click grinding in which you kill the mobs right away, but it will be helpful if you were to store them up and kill them later. Then it would help bypass the mob cap. Or perhaps a better idea is just a totally different style pillager grinder in pure Ian X04 style, i.e. a very simple and easy to build but effective design. Actually, I mean, it's his design, he just doesn't know it yet. His outpost lazy mob switch allows pillagers to spawn and build up due to bypassing the mob cap with a raid. Then he disables the raid and uses a portal chunk loader to set them in a lazy chunk where they will count towards the mob cap but not despawn. This works perfectly and is, in his typical fashion, very clever. The thing is that this is also a perfect batch process mob grinder. Just instead of building up the mobs to trap them in a lazy chunk, we just kill them. After AFKing for a while, they will build up, and Ian's design doesn't have cramming issues. With some quick, easy modifications, you can shut the outside doors, then trap them all in a cell, giving you the privacy to sneak down and kill them for some juicy XP. After AFKing for about 10 minutes, I got 47 levels. Not too shabby for a very simple early game farm, and certainly enough for enchanting. Even so, that doesn't help my single player pillager grinder. But I mean, that's okay. I'm still going to commit to it. I haven't yet, but we'll build Blackrobe's upgrades to the system and probably skip the raid portion for the time being unless I discover another benefit like improved pathfinding, etc. But to increase my rates, I think the best thing to do will be to increase the spawning platform size, maybe lower it if I can, and perhaps some other tweaks. I haven't totally given up on this farm yet. I mean, it's right next to my base, and it's an easy way to get Bad Omen. It is tempting to say that the exploration into increasing efficiency was a failure, but really, we had a question, and now we have an answer, which in our case is mostly just, well, no. But at the end of the day, it's just been something interesting to dig into, which is all I personally am looking for. I do want to shout out the Discord community Minecraft server that had the Enderman farm that I showed. We have a couple of servers running and they're pretty active with a lot of different projects and a nice community if you are looking for a good group of people to play with. Join the Discord to check them out. But with that said, I think that's going to do it for this episode. A big thank you to my Patreons for your support, especially Iana Arch for supporting at the top $15 a month tier. It's really appreciated. But with that, thank you all so much for watching, and goodbye. Orange.